I believe that the parties are the problem today. I believe that they are the problem. The only people benefiting from the divisiveness that they, frankly, have created in this country. It has been the parties that have decided to tell us that we should hate our neighbors if they think a little bit differently than we do. The vitriol has come from there, and the only people benefiting from that vitriol are the parties in power. People are leaving the parties, and I don't think that that's because for any other reason other than the parties have left the people. The minute you win an election or lose an election, you start thinking about winning the next election instead of actually participating in the process of making this country better. So we got to fix the system.
Well, welcome back to the Independent Voter Podcast. We are so lucky today to have Jason Faler with us. He is a candidate, an independent candidate for Congress in the 6th Congressional District in Oregon. Jason, welcome to the program.
Yeah, thanks for having me.
And tell us a little bit about yourself and your independent candidacy in Oregon. We are well acquainted with how difficult it is to run as an independent in our very bipartisan system where, you know, most people expect for you to run as either pick a side, run as a Democrat, run as a Republican, but you have chosen a different path.
Yeah.
And so tell us about your candidacy and why you chose to run as an independent.
Sure, you bet. First, just a little bit about me. I'm a 4th-generation Oregonian. I've spent most of my life here in Oregon, with the exception of some grad school that I did back east and, of course, my combat tours. Almost 27 years in uniform in the United States Army, originally the Army National Guard and then the Army Reserve. I'm a lieutenant colonel right now. Just got selected actually for promotion to colonel, ending up a...
Congratulations,
Thank
Jason.
you.
That's wonderful.
Yeah, thank you. Just ending up a command tour at Fort Sheridan, Illinois, and also a healthcare administrator. I've been in healthcare administration for over 20 years, so have worked in strategy, operations, business development, access, all that kind of stuff in large integrated healthcare delivery systems, and then smaller independent private practices as well. So sort of spanning the entire gamut and very close to understanding sort of the costs and the convoluted aspects of our healthcare system here in the United States. It's not an easy fix by any stretch.
It's good for somebody who wants to run for office to actually have some background in the healthcare industry because we have so many problems within our healthcare system, right? So you have like an insight that a lot of people probably don't have.
Well, I hope so. The more you know, the more you realize how complex and challenging it's going to be to fix because it's been a lot of bolted on kind of nonsensical things and some things that probably made sense at the time, but it's a little bit of a Frankenstein's monster in terms of what it looks like here in the United States today. And then additionally, sounds
a little bit like running for office as an independent, right?
Similar. And then I along those lines, I also teach at the Oregon Health Sciences University and Portland State University. I have a joint school of public health, and I've been teaching in the MPA, MPH, and PhD programs there since 2007. I teach mostly healthcare law and regulation.
Wow.
So what in the world drew you to politics?
Yeah. What drew me to politics? I've always been interested in politics, not sure whether I'd ever be willing to participate in it or not, but I've always been interested in, how politics locally, nationally, and internationally kind of shape our lives and shape so many things, shape life. So I've always been interested in it. I don't know that I can say that I've always wanted to be a candidate in some way, shape, or form. But
was there something that happened where you were like, okay, I'm going to do this? Was there like a particular event or something that happened in your life where you said, I need to jump into this arena and try to have my voice be heard?
It's been a little bit like the frog in the boiling water, and the temperature's sort of gradually turned up to the point where I'm not boiled yet, but it did get to the point where I said I need to hop out of the water and feel like I at least would like my candidacy to draw some attention to some things at a minimum. That said, I'm not running to make a statement. I'm running to win, and I fully intend to do so. But that's a Herculean effort. It's I feel like Sisyphus every day rolling that boulder up the hill, and that's kind of what it's like every single day on this journey. But to be honest with you, one of the biggest factors to answer that question for me, deciding that I would like to throw my my hat in the ring is that. Like I said, I've spent 27 years in uniform. I've done multiple combat tours, and I've lost people close to me, more than one. And when I look at the things that are happening in our country, when I look at the loyalty of politicians that are in office, and I see so many of them whose loyalty leans clearly far more strongly in favor of party over the people and the country. And we vote on party lines 95, 99% of the time. It seems like a lot of gridlock and grandstanding, no decorum whatsoever. I'm not terribly young, but I do remember a time, doesn't seem like that long ago, where we had some decorum in our government, and people weren't afraid to reach out across the aisle, to forge friendships and to seek some sort of common ground and common good for the country. And that just seems almost impossible in this day and age. We've got a divisive government. We've got two divisive parties. The people have left those parties, which is an interesting thread that I hope we can tug out a little bit today, is looking at the electorate, especially here in Oregon. You just go back to 2012. We had it was an all-time low, but a low of 22% of registered voters who were unaffiliated, not affiliated with any party. In 2026, that's grown to right around 40%.
Wow, that's almost double.
Yeah, and it's at 40% if you include the lesser parties, and there is an independent party here in Oregon. I think others have that as well, but
sure.
So it's people are leaving the parties, and I don't think that that's because for any other reason other than the parties have left the people. And we've gotten tired of what I think is clearly just an evolution and an iteration of more and more extremism, and each of these parties moving further and further toward the extreme fringes of their voter and voting base. And the rest of us, who I think largely lies somewhere in the middle and don't necessarily think along party lines for the most part.
Or maybe we think along party lines for some things. Maybe
Absolutely.
We deserve a system, I think, where the best idea wins, not whether it comes from, one side or the other.
Winner.
Exactly. And no one likes being told how to think, right? Everyone wants to believe they're an independent thinker. Of course, we're going to drift away from these entities that have just become so increasingly tell you how to think about this issue, how you should be voting on this issue, when really they want to see someone who just speaks for themselves, which it sounds like, Jason, you've kind of embodied that with your background and also in your positions.
I'd sure like to be. I mean, I definitely would line my resume, in almost 50 years of life up against my two opponents and be very, very proud about how it compares and contrasts with theirs.
Have you always been an independent, or were you registered one way or the other? Did you come to this independence through one of the parties, or have you always been an independent?
I've been a member of both parties at different times of my life. As a younger adult, I was a member of the Republican Party. I was in my youth, and now that I've gotten a little bit more removed from that, see some flaws in it. But still, I was a big fan, as I think a lot of people were, of Ronald Reagan. And certainly some of his economic policies have turned out to be hopes and wishes that never came to fruition. But I think at least having someone with some decorum and some sense of leadership, and someone that we can be proud to rally around as a president, no matter whether you voted for him or not. We've had presidents like that, where once they're in the office, Americans can sort of stand behind them and support them. That seems to be...
It sort of seems like the president now, President Trump, is not really in that same leadership mode. He almost seems like he's just representing the Republicans, and even just the Republicans who support him. It really doesn't seem like he's a president for all of us.
Well, he's certainly not. Yes. And so that has changed over time, is what I was going to say. And that's part of what has led me to this. So, I disavowed the Republican Party very, very strongly after I came back from my first tour in Iraq, quite frankly. I was disgusted.
What year was that?
Let's see. So it would have been like January of 2005 to January 2006 in Baghdad.
Okay.
And, so
is that after the battle, this first and second battle of Fallujah?
So Fallujah had happened by then.
Yeah. Okay.
And
so you did tours in Iraq, you did tours in Afghanistan?
Not in Afghanistan. I did, I got mobilized twice in support of Operation Iraqi Freedom, and then once, Operation Enduring Freedom, which most people think about Afghanistan, this aspect of enduring freedom was actually in the Horn of Africa. So I was in Djibouti and Kenya, worked in the embassy in Kenya for a little while, ran a little human intelligence counterintelligence team there, did a lot of intelligence liaison with our intelligence community and with our partners in that area.
Did you ever do any war games around like the Strait of Hormuz? Just curious.
I've never participated in any of those. I know that they've certainly
Yeah.
been done. And so, one more reason why it's a little shocking to me.
It's kind of baffling, right? Like what's
is.
going on. You have these people
Yeah.
who've studied it year after year after year, decade after decade. Like what would happen if, we were to be in conflict with Iran? Well, it would, they would shut down the Strait of Hormuz. Well, what would happen then?
Yeah, it's kind of the biggest string that they've got to pull. And
they pulled it, right?
Yeah, and I can guarantee you that's been in the contingency plans and all the wargaming that we've done extensively across conflicts and potential conflicts.
Is part of your motivation for running because of the background that you have in the military, that you would bring that to Congress, that you would be able to, being a veteran?
Yeah, look, that's part of it. I never want, when I say things like that, I never want to insinuate that those who have not served in uniform have no business running for.
Oh no, of course not. Of course not.
We all bring something to the table. I do find it troubling that we're at, I don't think an all-time low, but we're at a little bit of a low in terms of the number of members of Congress that have served in uniform. And I do think it's important that when we have people like those that are currently in power who have never served and whose sons and daughters will never serve, we need to have people who understand the cost and sacrifice. And so, you asked me why I've decided to run, and there's so many reasons, but the biggest reason that I always come back to is that, as I mentioned earlier, I've lost people that are close to me in combat. And I desperately want this country to be something that's worthy of their sacrifice.
Mm-hmm. I hear you. I hear you. And so most veterans and most people in the military, a lot of them are sort of independent, right? I mean, you're sort of taught not to necessarily pick a side. It's not like you're fighting in Iraq for the Republicans or fighting in Afghanistan for the Democrats. It's that you're fighting for our country. And so I definitely have noticed in the reform space where Ethan and I work that there are a lot of veterans who are really interested in nonpartisan reform.
Yes.
Who are there's an organization called Veterans for All Voters, which is an amazing organization. Check it out on the internet. They are strongly behind getting rid of first past the post voting systems, which sort of keep us in this Democrat Republican,
and they're interested
match.
in making the country better. Like you said, you want to be proud of the thing that you fought for. And it makes complete sense that reform is the way to go. Let's make the system better instead of, trying to find the best candidates that are pushed way off to each side. And that's what we're all about here at Independent Voter.
Yeah, exactly. And I think that is a draw for many veterans, many of us who have served towards being independent, is because we took and take the oath that we swore to defend and uphold the Constitution of the United States very, very seriously. And it wasn't support either party or any party. It was the principles.
Or even any particular politician, right? I mean, it has nothing to do with even who holds the
ultimately we're subject to legal orders of the commander-in-chief and the officers appointed over us.
Of course.
So that does matter. But ultimately, and I will say, I feel like the apolitical nature of the military has eroded a little bit. And I'm an N of one. This is just one guy's experience. But in almost 27 years in uniform, it does feel like we've gradually gone from a place where we really don't talk politics in uniform at all to a place where some of the policies have been so extreme and decisive, sometimes divisive, that you do hear more. At least I have heard more.
Well, when you have like a former Fox News host, as the head of the Department of Defense, it's gonna get political, and it hasn't been, and that's, I think, one of the of the casualties that we've suffered as a country. And I don't think it's too late, right? I don't think it's that with the change of the administration that will come, maybe we can go back to a time when it wasn't so divided by
Yeah.
party. Maybe when we have some new leadership. I'm not sure of that, but I'm certainly
Look,
hopeful
that's the
that
only reason I'm running. That's the only
there
reason
you
I'm
go.
running is because I believe that it's still not too late. I believe we are
That's
danger
right.
close, but I do not believe that the point of no return has been passed. I don't think
So that's a really great play. I just did want to talk before we say goodbye. I wanted to talk about sort of some of the obstacles that you're facing that are unique because you've chosen to run as an independent. Like I think I noticed on your website that you have to get a certain number of signatures in order to get on the
Yeah.
ballot that the Democrats and the Republicans do not have to get. And I know that in the state of Maine, for example, if you're a Democrat or a Republican, you only have to get 2,000 signatures. But if you're running as as an independent, you have to get 4,000 signatures. Can you tell us about some of the barriers that you face?
Tremendous barriers to entry, obstacles to entry here. And that is one of them, right? And so, people have asked me, well, Jason, why don't you just run as a Republican or run as a Democrat and win your primary? Then you'll do better in the general election. And I said, there's a couple reasons why I don't do that. Number one, I believe that the parties are the problem today. I believe that they are the problem. The only people benefiting from the divisiveness that we have created, that they frankly have created in this country. It has been the parties that have decided to tell us that we should hate our neighbors if they think a little bit differently than we do. That's not us as a people. That's the parties telling us that. The vitriol has come from there, and the only people benefiting from that vitriol are the parties in power, and that's the only entities that will continue to benefit from something like that. The rest of us are suffering, economically and otherwise. But the obstacles, are huge. And so that's the reason that I've decided not to put a party letter behind my name, is because I think the parties are the problem. And to me, yes, I'm running to win. I'm not a statement candidate. I'm running to win. And I know that it is much more challenging and difficult to do that as an independent, non-affiliated candidate. But I would be selling out to what I believe in principle by doing. And therefore, I've chosen not to done that. So not to have done that. So the obstacles that I encounter, you've touched on a huge one, which is neither of my opponents in the general election. There's a Republican and a Democrat. No other independents have filed for District 6 that I've seen, and I think it might be too late for them to do so now. I'm not sure what the Secretary of State rules are on that, but yes, I've got to get what equals 1% of the votes cast in the last presidential election in District 6.
In
Now,
CD6.
yes, and that's a little bit of a challenge because this is a new district. We used to have only 5 districts in Oregon until the 2020 census. After that census, we created a 6th district, which is, it used to be any Western Oregon congressional district was a surefire Democrat. It's sort of stayed that way, but they're much, much more in play than they've ever been in the past. So 2022, Andrea Salinas ran against a gentleman named Mike Erickson, who was the Republican candidate, and won, I think, by only about a 2% margin. Same 2 candidates were opposing one another.
Running this time?
No.
Oh, no, in 24?
No, in 24 they did, and there was a little bit bigger margin. This time, the Republican candidate is a former mayor of a town in the 6th district, and I'm not sure that he's a real viable candidate. I've heard a lot of Republicans say they're not super excited, but neither of them had an opponent in the primary. So they could focus on not getting any signatures or anything like that. It's all about fundraising. And so for me, I've got to gather 3,532 valid signatures from registered voters in the 6th congressional district here in Oregon. And, if you consider the fact that the Secretary of State loves to throw out signatures on these petitions for any reason whatsoever.
We know all about that.
Yeah. So I'm looking at probably needing at least 5,000 of those.
Sure.
And I don't know if you had a chance to read my little op-ed that I did in the Fulcrum, but it is it's mind-boggling to me that ballot access in 2026 in the digital age, well into the digital age, ballot access is still being done with pen, paper, and clipboard. I've got to get ink signatures from people by standing outside of supermarkets who call security within 20 minutes. It's not like it used to be where supermarkets welcomed you to, either sell your Girl Scout cookies or get signatures on petitions. It's not like that anymore. They don't want you there. And I can speak from experience that you don't last long at a grocery store, at a supermarket, at a shopping mall. So what we're left with is going door to door, which is not the most efficient of methods.
No.
And I'll tell you, the percentage of no soliciting signs that I see on front doors now, I had no idea. I haven't been selling Girl Scout cookies lately. So
I'll tell you a fun fact. So I ran the very first ever in America electronic signature gathering campaign in the middle of COVID in Massachusetts.
Okay.
And we did it through DocuSign, and we got the court to let us do it. So it has been done before once in Massachusetts in 2020. If you want to look it up, perhaps there's a way for you to use the precedent from that signature gathering campaign to try to forge some new ground in Oregon using our precedent as a
I will look
a
into
basis
that.
for doing it. It was pretty cool to watch it happen.
Thing, right? Is that we can do anything. We can verify identity through digital signatures and just about anything we do in this day and age. But I'm still out there with pen and paper. And so even those front doors that don't have no soliciting signs, they've all got ring and Nest doorbells and things like that. And how many people are answering doors to strangers in 2026? Nobody. So the public square, which used to be a literal thing where you could go and address the public and talk to people, that doesn't exist anymore. It's online, it's social media, it's digital, yet we're still doing things like it was 1975 or...
Has your primary already happened, Jason?
Primary has happened, yeah. So both of those candidates were unopposed, advanced with no effort whatsoever to the general election. And here I am, still trying to collect my 3,532 signatures. And what's been clear is that because it's so challenging now because we can't do the supermarket thing, can't do the shopping mall thing, hard to go door to door, is that we've got to go to the markets, the Saturday markets and the Sunday markets, the farmers markets, the fairs, and those things are happening once a week. And that really limits collecting volume.
And I think it's interesting what you touched on, like with no effort required, they're able to pass through. Meanwhile, you're, using up so much of your campaign resources just trying to get these signatures just to make it on the ballot. It's a completely unfair balance of where you have to use your momentum and your resources
your energy,
in the election system. So, that's why this needs to be fixed.
And I'll tell you, and this is one of the reasons why I very much appreciate being a guest on your show today, is because it's been a real challenge, surprisingly so, honestly. I mean, I didn't think there'd be an onslaught of people, asking for us to be part of a news segment or a column or whatever it may be. But we've sent out press release after press release, and the mainstream media, even locally, hasn't risen to the bait yet because they're so skeptical of whether or not I'm even going to get on the ballot.
That's right.
Regardless of my credentials. And it's a chicken and egg thing because without a little bit of notoriety, it's hard to raise funds. And without raising funds, I can't hire the conclusion that what the campaign has come to is that we've got to hire paid circulators right now. And in Oregon, you can't hire them just on a per signature basis. You've got to do it on an hourly rate. So we're looking at $20 an hour, and we may even have to go so far as offering a per signature bonus, which we can do legally. That just can't be the basis of it. It's got to be hourly, and then a per signature base bonus on top of that. And that's going to eat through a lot of our funds, not having the name recognition like the incumbent does, or party backing, and therefore party funds and infrastructure.
Which means you can't spend the money running ads to get yourself name recognition, right?
You got it.
So you're right. It's hard, but you're still doing it anyway, Jason. You're still doing it anyway because you have
I'm
principles.
Not going to stop. Yeah,
and you're not going to stop. And we hope to have you on again for sure on our show. And we don't support any particular candidates, but we definitely support your right to run. We support your right to be a member of this beautiful body politic and to appreciate you doing the hard things. We can do hard things.
Can I take just a second to make a couple other quick points?
Of course.
One of which was just to point out the contrast between what I'm trying to do in fundraising and just getting on the ballot versus the incumbent who last election cycle raised $3.3 million. About 93% of that or so was from outside of the district that she represents, and almost 60% of it from outside the state of Oregon altogether. So when you look at that and recognize that she is not an anomaly, this is almost a typical
no, it's just totally the way that it works.
Yes.
And it's fine. It's perfectly legal. There's nothing there, she's just running according to the rules that are given to her.
Absolutely.
She's just using the power that she has.
But why people are not looking at that and saying, and maybe they are, right? Maybe this is the election that it'll change. But why people aren't looking at that and saying, so we know that this election is more akin to an auction than it is to democracy. Because special interests, billionaires, political action committees, all of the folks that are, and again, I think this is especially the case in the House of Representatives, where it's a 2-year cycle. That the minute you win an election or lose an election, you start thinking about winning the next election instead of actually participating in the process of making this country better. And I know that they're spending, dozens of hours a week fundraising from day one until the next election cycle.
And let me just, in their defense, I don't think that any of them love it, but I know they absolutely, they don't love having to spend their time this way, but that's the way that our system is set up right now. So
we got to fix the system. We got to
fix the system. We got to fix what's underneath it. That's right.
Who they may or may not love it, but this is the way that the system works. It works for the parties. And in my Fulcrum article, I mentioned that the system, and I was specifically talking about the Oregon sort of ballot access signature rules. But this is broadly applicable. I think we can extrapolate this to so many other echelons of just trying to participate in our government, which is supposed to be a government of, by, and for the people, right? I think our founders would roll over in their graves if they saw what was happening today in terms of money and politics. But there's a reason that the system is not being fixed, and it's because the system, like it or not, they might like it, they might not like it. I know they don't love fundraising and things like that, but it works for them. It works for the people on the inside. The system is a moat, is what I said in the Fulcrum op-ed. It is designed to keep people on the inside safely inside, and those of us on the outside out. And that's why we have to change the system. And if the people that can change the system, our elected leaders, are refusing to do so, that ought to be all the reason we need to vote them out of office. And which leads to kind of my big point too, is I've done a lot of canvassing and knocking on doors and things of that nature, and talking to members of the voting public here in Oregon 6th Congressional District. What I've recognized is the fact that the electorate has changed so much. When I kind of led with that, people don't know that. That's one of the biggest secrets out there, is how dramatically the electorate has changed.
You mean from the percentage of,
yes.
You're talking about the percentage of no party preference
Correct.
Voters, the percentage of people who are not choosing to affiliate with either one of the political parties. That's the fastest
correct.
Growing segment in America,
and it is
in
the
California,
biggest
in Oregon, everywhere, right? People are
Yes.
choosing not to affiliate, especially people who are younger than us.
Yes, and people
like
don't
Ethan's
realize
generation.
Yes, they don't realize that it has shifted, or that is now by far the largest voting bloc in Oregon 6th Congressional District and in most congressional districts. The largest voting bloc, because the people have left the parties, because the parties left the people. So when I start talking to people about that, they don't know it. Very few of them recognize that not only has it shifted, but that the block of non-affiliated voters is now by far the largest block. And why that is important for me to then, when I recognized that this was new information to most people, it was clear to me that I had to make this part of the campaign, was educating people that you are now part of the largest voting bloc, and that you don't have to go to the ballot box, hold your nose, and vote for the lesser of two evils anymore. The math has changed, because there's been this conventional wisdom that a vote for a third-party candidate or a non-affiliated candidate or a non-traditional candidate is a throwaway vote. And that was true for a long time. The math says that is no longer true. all the independent.
Well, but that's also why we're
need.
working so hard at Independent Voter Network. And, I've spent the last decade of my life trying to change the first past the post voting system to a ranked choice system so that truly no one can spoil an election. You truly can go in and vote for the person that you like the most without being afraid of electing the person that you like the least. That you really have freedom when it comes to that ballot. So
and that
anyway,
that is the conventional wisdom that I'm facing. Those are actually my biggest headwinds, believe it or not, is the conventional wisdom. And the older the voter, the less willing, in my experience, the less willing to recognize that you actually can vote for an independent in this election and be part of the largest voting bloc and vote for an independent and not have it be a throwaway vote. It hasn't always been like that. I acknowledge that and recognize that and agree with that. That is no longer the case today. So if people can just understand that they're now part of the largest voting bloc, all they need is a candidate to coalesce around. I believe on that candidate. I would like to be that candidate. And I would like Oregon, because I'm not hubristic enough to think that the one independent representative in the House of Representatives of 435 individuals is going to be the guy or the gal that makes the change. That's not the way that it works. What I want is for Oregon to be the pioneers that we like to call ourselves, the trailblazers that we believe that we are, and to hold this out as an example to the rest of the nation. That again, you do not have to hold your nose at the ballot box anymore and vote for the lesser of two evils. The math has changed because the electorate has so dramatically changed, and voting for, if you're not happy with the two parties, there's never been a better time to vote the two parties out. That time is now. And I think people just need to understand how the electorate has changed, so they feel better about casting a vote without it feeling like it is a throwaway or a protest vote.
Wonderful. Well, Jason, it's
Couldn't
great.
have said it better.
Couldn't have said it better. Exactly. Great to see you today. Thank you for joining us. Thank you for running. Thank you for participating in your democracy. Thank you for serving our country for 27 years. And we look forward to having you on again and exploring, all the different things that you have that come about during this groundbreaking candidacy in the 6th Congressional District in Oregon. Thanks for joining us.
Thanks for what you guys do. Very important work.
Thanks, Jason.
This is the Independent Voter Podcast, sponsored by the Independent Voter Project and produced by OLAS Media. Remember, you can always find the Independent Voter Podcast or the How It Really Works series at ivn.us. Follow and subscribe at olasmedia.com.
OLAS Media.